Hello, technology world. This is Gabriel Smith, and this webcast is going to be about the future of Microsoft Windows, as well as taking a look at its current market position. Now, most of us, when we think about Microsoft Windows, we actually think about the company Microsoft as a whole. The average person, the average Joe, when they think about Windows, they can't really separate the company from their mind. Now, as many people know, there has been a barrage of free software and open software into the market. And you may ask the question, how does this affect Microsoft? How can Microsoft continue to make money in an environment like this? The answer may shock you. So I have with me, I'm sorry about that, I have with me a copy of the annual report from Microsoft for 2012. And this version is called the 10K form. And the 10K form is a scaled down or non glossy version of an annual report. Now, as you may know, any company being sold on the open market must have an annual report as well as other financial documents, and they must meet certain requirements by the government, particularly the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, one of the requirements that they have to meet is that they have to inform their investors about risk that the investors are going to take on when they invest in their stock. So risk factors have to be divulged to the public as a result. So Microsoft's risk factor is actually on page 13. So in this section, Microsoft explains that the section on page 13, the section that says competition among platforms, ecosystems, and devices. This section, you can read it if you want. I've already read it, but I'm not going to reread it. But this section basically explains that in order for a company to be successful in this day and time, they have to have an ecosystem. And Microsoft explains that they're having challenges with their ecosystem. Just to quote them, they're saying, we face significant competition from firms that provide competing platforms, applications, and services. And the strategic importance of a vibrant ecosystem increases as we launch the Windows 8 operating system. So they're basically saying that they need to really improve their ecosystem, and at the same time they're facing challenges from other competing markets. For example, so an integrated ecosystem is basically a way of saying that they're going to not only offer you software, but they're going to control the environment, or they're going to influence the environment of which other companies come in and offer related products. So a good idea of this is that if you think of the way that Apple does business, I believe they were the first to come out with the iStore or Apple Store. I don't know what it's called because I don't really use Apple. I use Google. But they're the first ones to come out with a store that allows you to buy applications online through Apple. They didn't develop the application, but they have a platform that developers can come in and sell their applications. So Microsoft is having a problem with that. I believe I got my copy of Windows 8 last year, and that's when I noticed the Microsoft Store. And it seems to be coming along, but it seems like it needs a little bit more work. And Microsoft has admitted, and I'll probably show you this later, I'm not sure, that they are a little nervous about getting developers to come in and develop applications for them. So that's pretty much the vertically integrated model. And another thing that they've actually admitted, let me see if I can find it here really fast. Okay, they're talking about the fact that they make a lot of money through Windows operating system and through licenses. So let me just go ahead and read, which I said I wouldn't do. All right, so the proliferation of alternative devices and form factors, in particular mobile devices such as smartphones, tablet computers, creates challenges from competing software platforms. These devices compete on multiple bases, including price and perceived utility, of the device and its platforms. Users may increasingly turn to these devices to perform functions that would have been performed by personal computers in the past. So, long story dull, the dying PC market is hurting them, and they're not really prepared. They were not prepared to make the transition into the mobile market. I know that they're trying now. To be honest with you, I do like Windows 8. There's a lot of quirks with it, but I do like it. I really love the tile feature, which is a product of which is one of their intellectual agreements. I have a Google phone myself. I wish I had tiles on the front of my screen, but I don't. So that's one feature that I really like about Microsoft, and I think things like that really give them a fighting chance. But the dying PC market is killing them, as well as the not having a really strong what's the word? I'll quote them. Not having a strong vertically integrated ecosystem, or just the ecosystem. So their ecosystem isn't as good as Apple. It isn't as good as Google, and they basically admit it here. And they also talk about the stores. We know that Apple has a really good store, Google has a really good store, but Microsoft is basically saying that they're nervous about the Microsoft store. So I'll just read a little bit here. Completing platforms that have application marketplaces, sometimes referred to as stores, with scale and significant install bases on mobile devices. And these applications leverage free and user-paid services that over time result in disincentives for users to switch to competing platforms. In order to compete, we must successfully enlist developers to write applications for our marketplaces and ensure that these applications have high quality. Oh, let me just stop this. Someone's calling me. Okay. Where was I? Basically, long story dull, they're nervous about their application store. Just to sum that up. Now, this section, the business model and the competition, this is where Microsoft kind of discusses the problem of open source software and how it's damaging their business model. Because basically, Microsoft is bearing the full cost of developing software, whereas other companies, let's take Linux, for example. So as you know, Linux is kind of a open source operating system in which the community kind of developed it piece by piece, and eventually I think Linus Torvalds was the start of it all, but for the most part the community helped make it better. Now Red Hat comes along. They basically take the Linux kernel and they add a little bit more code to the kernel, and then they develop a product known as Red Hat. Now, this is a good example of how Red Hat didn't bear the full cost because the community basically put this thing together for free. They came along, they improved it, and then they're selling it. So this, of course, hurts companies like Microsoft, and when other products come onto the market in the same way that Linux come on the market, and there's probably a lot of them, then this basically really does a lot of damage to Microsoft because Microsoft is paying from the product start to finish. So it's going to be really hard to compete with somebody who basically picked up something for free and just put a little few details on it, and now they have their own version that they have on the market. So this is hurting Microsoft. What else do we have here? Oh, and I think it's also worried about companies like Yahoo, for example, in the sense that they can compete with Microsoft because they're getting paid by the advertisers and not by the customers. They don't really have to develop a product that's going to generate them money directly. They just need to develop a suite of user tools and functionalities that will keep them coming back to their site, and they'll make money from advertising. So it says advertising revenue and fund development of products and services. These competitors provide to users at little cost and competing directly with our revenue generating products. So that's definitely a problem for Microsoft. So that's basically it. So basically, this section talks about how Microsoft bears a full cost of its software and how other companies don't. Some companies don't, and also companies are able to operate freely because they're getting their not freely. They're able to operate on a advertisement revenue basis, and that's pretty much it. So with that said, let's just have a quick look at some financial information. So, with all of its problems, I'm just going to look at the annual data for 2012 because I want to end this webcast really quick. So, for 2012, Microsoft's net income was $21 billion. $21 billion. And for 2012, Google's net income was $10 billion. So in 2012, Microsoft actually made more money than Google. For 2012, Apple made $41 billion. So if we had to look at these three companies and we had to rate them on the amount of money that they made for 2012, Google would come in first with $41 billion, Microsoft would come in second with $21 billion, and Google would come in third for $10 billion. However, this is one small piece of the picture, of the puzzle, so to speak. Another thing that I like to look at is I like to look at the actual balance sheet. And you can see for 2012, in 2012, Microsoft had $3 billion. They had $15 billion in debt. And they have $78 billion in equity. $78 billion in equity, meaning like buildings, equipment, trucks, cars, software, anything that is owned by the investors of the company. So Google had $8 billion, a little bit more money, and they had $5 billion debt, a little less debt, a lot less debt, and they have about a little less owner's equity. Now, 2012, Apple has $10 billion. They had zero debt, and they have $118 billion in owner's equity. So obviously, from a spreadsheet point of view, a balance sheet point of view, Apple is the winner here. They're number one because they have more owner's equity, they have zero debt, and they have more cash. Now, from the balance sheet perspective, Google is second. They have $8 billion in cash. They also have less debt, $5 billion, and about 71 in owner's equity, whereas Microsoft comes in last. They have less cash, about $3 billion. They also have a whopping debt of $15 billion, more than all three of the companies, and then they have a little bit more equity. So it's kind of a bizarre situation. I think Microsoft definitely is in trouble. Although they're making money, it looks like they don't have enough cash. So I would like to know what you think about Microsoft's future. Was I wrong? Did I hit the nail on the head? Let me know. Please leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe.